Trennan ties it up in the corner. Predators win. Predators 5, Golden Knights 3. And we're 2-0 to start the road trip with a big win in fabulous Las Vegas.
Predators winners, that's right, on the road at the defending Cup champions last night. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
How about that game last night?
It was a good one.
It was a good one. I was glad that I stayed up. I did order a slice of pizza last night. I didn't order a whole pizza, but I could not. After Barry Trotz came on our show yesterday, and he said, I bet you're going to end up ordering a pie to stay up and watch this game. I could not shake that out of my head. So I did order a slice of pizza. And I'm going to be honest with you. It was incredible. And so I'm glad I did it. But I could not shake that out of my head. Predators winners last night at Vegas. By the way, there are a lot of rumors out there, Ian. Vanderbilt plays tonight against Georgia right here on 102.5 The Game.
Uh-huh.
There are a lot of rumors on the internet that Jerry Stackhouse is getting fired after the game. You buy it?
No.
I don't either. I mean, I think it's almost
after the
like
game? Yeah, no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they lose, it's theoretically possible. I mean, if they win, they can't fire him, right?
I wouldn't think so.
Vandy doesn't fire. I mean, I know she fired Derek Mason that way, but like Vandy doesn't fire in the middle of the season, do they?
Not traditionally.
Yeah. But again, those are the rumors, and they would know better than I would. I haven't gone digging into any of it. So we'll keep that in mind. But I want to start on last night's Preds game because there's kind of two takeaways. First off, there was the game itself. The Predators absolutely outplayed the defending Cup champions on the road. Now, I was at the game Thursday night against Dallas, the one the Predators lost by a touchdown. And I remember saying on Friday, and I said this on the road trip, and I said this yesterday, and I said this Monday, and I said after that Dallas game, they were going to go to St. Louis, they were going to beat St. Louis. And I said not only were they going to beat St. Louis, but this is the road trip where the Predators are going to go 4-0-1. Or something like that. Because on Friday, it hit me this was going to happen on Friday. When Adam Vingan, filling in for Joe on the morning show, was like, this is the road trip that's going to doom the Predators. And I was like, okay, this is what the Predators do. Because on Thursday night, they looked like absolute sellers. Like there wasn't even a discussion to be had. And if there's anything that I've learned about the Predators over the years, it is as soon as you think they're about to zig, they turn around and they zag. That's why early this year I said, man, I think this team's going to make the playoffs. And I almost guaranteed it on the program that they were going to make the playoffs. And then they had that West Coast road trip, the first one, and they got blasted. And then they came home and they played Arizona, who wasn't supposed to be very good, and they got beat by them. And they got beat by, I forget, there was some other terrible team that came in here and beat them. I think it was Anaheim when they were stinking it up. And it was like, oh, my God, they might be horrible. And so we started talking about embracing the tank. And then as soon as we started talking about embracing the tank and I got off the bandwagon, the Predators started winning games. Then I got back on the bandwagon. Then the Predators started losing games. So, again, every time, and it's been this way since Laviolette was the coach. Every time you think they're going to zig, they zag. Every time you think they're going to zag, they zig. And so they get just hammered. They lose a game where they got outplayed Tuesday night against New Jersey, and they get hammered by Dallas at home. And everybody says, here they go. They're going on the road. St. Louis is good. Vegas is good. L.A. is good. They're going to go out on the road trip, and they're going to get wiped, and that's going to be it, and there's going to be no question, and Barry's going to sell, and I just know the Predators too well for that. So I told you guys, I knew they were going to win at St. Louis on Saturday, and I knew they were going to win yesterday, and I think they're probably going to win tomorrow. Now, I don't know about the end of the road trip against the bad teams. That scares me. Because, again, when you think they're going to zig, then they turn around and they zag. And that was last night's performance. But they totally outplayed Vegas from the puck drop. I mean, it was wonderful last night watching how I thought, out-physicaled Vegas. I thought they were more aggressive than Vegas. And then, quite frankly, for a team that outside of its top line doesn't have a lot of skill. I mean, did you see that goal, Cody Glass? It was a great pass by Yossi, but he corrals the puck while he's moving and then fires one right by Aiden Hill. I mean, I thought that he was, again, the Predators, when you think they're going to zig, they zag. And that takes me to the second part of yesterday's victory. It is beyond obvious to me that what Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett were intending to send, the message they intended to send, got through to the players. Because, again, Barry came on the show, and I think this is the first time he's talked publicly about it. Now, he talked to Elliott, and Elliott kind of relayed it on Hockey Night in Canada. But I think this is the first time he talked about it publicly when he came on the show yesterday. But Barry said, he talked to the captains and said, we've got a standard, and we're not meeting the standard, so we're not going to Vegas for the extra couple of days. We're not going to U2 at the Sphere. And that the players understood it, the players took it the right way. And again, all we can judge this off of is what we see with our eyes on that ice. And what I see with my eyes on that ice is I see a team that got the message. Guys, that's what coaching is. Every time somebody doesn't do something, or every time a player doesn't play hard, or every time, I always hear the defense of the coach, which is, well, it's not the coach who's going out and missing those shots. It's not the coach who is not taking care of their assignment. It's not the coach who's not trying hard. And every time I hear that, as soon as you tell me it's not the coach's fault, I immediately dismiss it. Because the old Hall of Fame women's basketball coach, Paul Sandiford, who got Western Kentucky to the Final Four, used to always say, it's not what you know. It's what you can get them to do. And so when it comes to Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett, they decided they were going to send a message. They sent the message. As is with every risk in life. We don't really know exactly how that was going to work, right? I mean, there's a chance that the players could get so mad. I kept joking on the road trip about the team taking away the Vegas trip. I said, if this were the NBA, half the team would demand a trade. If you went to them and said, hey, guys, we're canceling the 2 extra days in Vegas, you do that in the NBA, and all of a sudden you're in trouble. But anytime you take a risk, there is a question of how this is going to play out. Barry Trotz took a risk because those players could have taken it the wrong way. And instead, in the 2 games, since they made it abundantly clear that the expectation for being a Nashville Predator is this, they have played the exact way that I think I, as a fan, want to see them play. And I am going to assume that it is the exact way that Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett want them to play. And see, what's crazy is I think the reality of canceling that Vegas trip was probably more of a story. Like, people are talking about, like, man, can you believe that they canceled that Vegas trip and Barry Trotz put his foot down and Andrew Burnett said, no way, no how? I think it's probably more of a story than it was a big deal to the players. I think the players were probably excited about going to Vegas. Then they were told, hey, guys, we're not meeting the standard. This isn't good enough. We're not going to Vegas. And it was like, well, that sucks. But then they went on with their lives and about their day. But I again think that the message was loud and clear. Whatever happens on the ice comes first. And for the last 2 games against 2 very good teams, St. Louis is good. Now, I will say this. I watched New Jersey. I watched Dallas. I watched St. Louis. I went to all 3 of those games last week, and New Jersey and Dallas are much better than St. Louis. I mean, New Jersey and Dallas just have suffocating forwards that are just lethal. And I didn't really feel like St. Louis had that. But again, in those 2 games, those 2 teams are decent. They're in the playoffs if they started today. The Predators have played like the kind of team that Barry Trotz, I think, envisions them being. And when they decided to make that move, when they decided to play the card on the table, I don't think it was about the pros, right? The guys that have been through the wars, the guys that have won cup finals like O'Reilly or McDonough, or the guys who have been there like Forsberg and Yossi. I don't think it was about those guys. Who scored last night? Who scored in St. Louis? Luke Evangelista scored both nights. Cody Glass scored last night. Cole Smith scored last night. I mean, I think that's where the message was intended to go. The younger guys. The younger guys who haven't been there and haven't done that before. And a guy like Evangelista who's getting his first true taste of being an NHL regular. That's who that message was for. I don't think Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett thought UC Soros wasn't focused. Or that, again, Roman Yossi and Ryan McDonough weren't focused. No, this was about the younger guys. And again, Luke Evangelista looks like he's about to go on a heater. Cody Glass last night, I saw that play where he corrals that puck and whips that one right through Aiden Hill, and I thought to myself, oh my God, if he could just do that more often. Because that was a get you drafted 7th overall type shot. Now, maybe there was a little, because it was Vegas, Cody Glass kind of had that in him, I don't know, but that was special. And so it's obvious to me that the Predators brass decided, hey, we are going to send a message. And the 2 games since the message, they've gotten it loud and clear. Guys, that's coaching. That's management. Sure, is a big part of this job going to be Barry Trotz finding the best 17-year-olds in Nova Scotia? Of course it is. Is part of the job for Andrew Burnett as to whether or not this is going to work is for him to design and operate the best power play in the NHL, which is supposedly his calling card? Sure. But at the same time, management is about getting the best out of others. And while the sample size is small, might just be a sugar high, the reset that the Predators gave their players after that disappointing week last week has worked. And as a fan, as somebody who's thinking about the big picture in all of this, the coach and the general manager, and is this going to work, and are they going to bring the team back? It is an incredibly encouraging sign. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. So I asked Barry Trotz yesterday when he was on the program, and I said, this is a measuring stick game, right? Vegas has really good players. They're the defending Stanley Cup champions. You're on the road. You need it. You've got to play desperate hockey. How much of a measuring stick game is it? And Barry said it was about how they played, not about whether or not they won. Well, they played great, and they won. So what does that mean big picture? We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. Again, Predators winners on the road at Vegas last night, 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 through the game. how much does a game like tonight, a measuring stick type game against the defending Cup champions, how much does what you see in terms of competitiveness on the ice, how much does that sway you one way or another of knowing what your team's capable of?
How much does it sway? It probably all depends on the way you play. It's the outcome. You could have your goaltender stand on his head, and you come away with a win, but you look at the rest of the game and you go, it's not there. So I think it's not necessarily the result, but how you played the game is really going to matter. Were you in the fight? Were you competitive? Were you dominated and you just got, you got lucky. You got a special team goal and great goaltending but never touched the puck. That would not, that would send a message one way. And if you're in the fight and it's pretty even, and even if you lose the game, it might send you in a different direction, on a positive direction. So I think it's how we play the game, not necessarily the result.
Big Swing Barry Trotz on our program yesterday saying, hey, this game against Vegas is going to be about how you play more so than the result to tell me where this team is as far as measuring stick would be concerned. And let me just say this. Not only did the Predators win, I think the Predators played great last night. I mean, I'm looking. They outshot Vegas 40-26. They outhit them 40-30. They were better than them in the face-off dot. They did not do anything on the power play last night, and they gave up a power play goal. But, I mean, I think that outside of, the block shots, the Predators won almost every single category last night in a game that Vegas came in, as a minus 145 favorite. They totally outplayed them. I mean, it was not a fluke last night that the Predators won. When Vegas made their comeback in the third period, I don't know about you. Ian, did you stay up for the whole game last night?
I did.
So when Vegas scored to make it 4-3 with about, 3 minutes?
Yeah, just under 3 minutes maybe.
I mean, they were like borderline about to pull the goalie when they scored the third goal. When they scored to make it 4-3, what'd you think?
I figured it was just going to be kind of a hold on, or hopefully you can get a quick empty netter.
I was sitting there, and you were right, because Gus Nyquist did put that one in the net. I was sitting there like, uh-oh. They outplayed them the whole night. It looked like when they got up 4-1 or whatever it was, it looked like they had put the game away, and uh-oh. Oh, that doesn't look good. And then immediately, the Predators are batting down the hatches trying to keep Vegas, with a 6-on-5 advantage, trying to keep Vegas from winning the game. And Gus Nyquist takes the shot that a lot of guys, I think, on this team would have been too afraid to take.
That was a far one.
I mean, that was a, 80-footer probably?
Yeah, it was pretty close, yeah.
I mean, and he just put it right there in the center of the net. And at that point, it was, good win, way to play. But even that, like an empty netter, I think when we think of an empty netter, there was a couple of games earlier in the year where the Predators won and Juuso Parssinen scored like meaningless empty netters at the end of the game. Like one was against the Islanders and Parssinen put the puck in the net with like 0.1 on the clock. Like it was over, and congratulations to Juuso Parssinen, you got a goal out of it. But that wasn't really like a good goal. Like, I'm like, at the end of the year, when we look at the numbers, that'll count, but it was kind of a cheapie, right? There was nothing cheap about Nyquist's empty netter last night at the end of the game. That being said, though, the fact that when Barry's trying to evaluate the team, he says it's about how we play and not about if we win. I can't watch last night's game and just say, contender, they beat Vegas. And the reason that is because of the zigging and the zagging and just the constant, man, they looked like crap last Thursday, and they've played 2 games since, and they've looked great. And that's just kind of who the Predators have been for a while now. Doesn't matter who the coach is, doesn't matter who the players are, doesn't matter who the GM is. So I need more. And here's what I need. What I need to see from the Predators is I need to see them sweep the road trip. Now, I expected them to beat St. Louis. after the embarrassing performance on Thursday against Dallas. And I told you at the end of the show yesterday that I thought the Predators were going to go ham on this road trip and come out of this with us really confused about what they are or what they aren't. But I think that they've got to not only win Thursday's massive game on the road in L.A., and that is a massive game because L.A. is starting to kind of pull away with that first wild card spot, but not only do they need to win the massive game, but they've got San Jose and Anaheim on the back end of the road trip. And those are two of the three worst teams in the conference, and they suck. And if there's anything I know about the Predators, it's that they'll go beat the L.A. Kings, they'll have won 3 in a row, and they'll go on the road to crappy San Jose, and they'll lose. And if the Predators are going to be a good team, and if the Predators are going to win the amount of games that they've got to win and pick up the amount of points that they have got to grab in order to make the playoffs this year, and in order for us to think that they're going to compete in the playoffs, they got to sweep the road trip because they got to win the games against the Scarbini teams. And I understand that the Predators don't, they're not the only team in the NHL that loses to bum teams from time to time. But given where they are in the season, you can't lose to the bums anymore. You've given up that margin for error. No losing to the bums. And yet I just know this team too well that I'm like, watch. They're going to win Thursday. Everybody's going to say, wow, they really re-centered after that Dallas loss. And then they're going to lose to either San Jose or Anaheim, and those two teams are awful. And here's what's crazy about it, too. Let's say the Predators beat the Kings, and then they win one of the two against the bad teams. The Predators at that point would be on pace for 89 points. Well, that's not good enough. Right now, the Predators are on pace for 88 points. So if we go back to 2019, since 2019, and we're not counting 2020 or 2021 because those were, COVID-slashed seasons. But if you go back to 2019, 88 points would not get you into the playoffs in any year. So let's say the Predators beat the Kings and they win one of the two. They're on pace for 89 points, not good enough. If they win both games, so if they sweep the road trip, they'll be on pace for 92 points, which puts them right on the edge of being able to make the playoffs. Last year, for instance, you had 92 points and you didn't make the playoffs. Florida had 92 points and they did make the playoffs. I think in 2019, Colorado, I want to say it was Colorado. I looked it up earlier today. Colorado had 90 points and they made the playoffs. So 90-92, you're really running a risk. But again, you have to win the road trip to be on pace for 92 points. So that's why I can't just look at last night and say, okay, Barry said it depends on how they play. How did they play? They outplayed Vegas. On they go. They got to win Thursday because Thursday is massive. Thursday is a playoff game. And then they can't lose to the bad teams. So last night was good. And it showed what the Predators could be capable of sometimes, especially if they can get second line, third line, secondary scoring. But I need a clean sweep of this road trip. And then the Predators are back at home, and, well, I think we can all agree that for some reason they have not played particularly well at home. 615-737-1025. Where do your Preds phones next? 615-737-1025. If you got a thought, get it in there. Hey, tomorrow be sure to participate in Preds Click. Oof. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the Preds game tomorrow night, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate with Robbie and Rexroad tomorrow at 8:45. Pick to Click brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. And then once again, TJ is my realtor, does a great job. Let's talk about Window Nation. That's right. So I live in a home that TJ Anderson was able to help me procure at a wonderful price. And now I want to take great care of my home. And I want to raise the value of my home. And I don't want to spend a bunch of money on my home. And that's why I brought in Window Nation. You should too. They're online at windownation.com. But what you need to do is you need to bring them in because we are about to go through the Nashville daily seasonal change where it's going to be 32 degrees. Then it's going to be 68 degrees. Then it's going to be 51 degrees. Then it's going to be 43 degrees. Then it's going to be, you know what I'm talking about. And if you've got bad windows, your energy bills are going to skyrocket. Well, the experts at Window Nation can come for a free in-home estimate, free in-home consultation. They can look at your windows and they can say, hey, here's what you can do to save on your energy costs. Here's what you can do to raise the value of your home. In fact, they've got separate models, too. They got the best energy-efficient models out there, and then they've got something at a more modest price. That's what's great about Window Nation. And not only that, not only does Window Nation do a great job of your home, they'll also tell you what you don't need, which is what I had when Window Nation came to my home. They said, you got good windows. You're good. And I appreciated that they were honest with me. And that's one of the reasons why, again, if you need to replace your windows or you've been thinking about replacing your windows, you want Window Nation on your team. That's right, Window Nation. And it's more affordable than you think because they've got 50% off all window styles and 0 down, 0 interest, no payments for 24 months. That's right, Window Nation. 866-90-NATION's the phone number, windownation.com. Again, 50% off all window styles, 0 down, 0 interest, and no payments for 24 months. 866-90-NATION, windownation.com.
O'Reilly, good stick. Nyquist, a second chance at a clear. He goes for the empty net and nails it. Gus Nyquist makes it 5-3 Preds. An empty netter with 1:49 to go.
I felt great about our game. even at the end, obviously we unfortunately put ourselves in a tougher position than I thought. The way we played, the way we dictated the game, that get in that position wasn't probably ideal. But I thought it was a real solid 60-minute effort. I thought we did a lot of really good things.
That was Andrew Burnett after the game last night. Can we get that Max call again? I mean, Max has been under fire today, by the way, which we will get to. Joe Rex wrote this morning. But I do love this about Max. I feel like Max on the big calls, and we only play like the big calls from the game the night before, but Max on the big calls. And I think Max and Hal do an excellent job when Max is in for Pete. I feel like Max is like something that you blow up, like, and it's got all of its air, and then just give me the goal again.
O'Reilly, good stick. Nyquist, a second chance at a clear. He
Going.
goes for the empty net and nails it. Gus Nyquist makes it 5-3 Preds. An empty netter with 1:49 to go.
I love it. I love it. All right, let's go to your phones. Phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. One texter says if Soros was in net last night instead of Kevin Lankinen, they would have lost. I have two thoughts to that. First off, there's no way to know that. And secondly, I thought Kevin Lankinen was fantastic. I mean, there were a couple of saves. I mean, we crapped on David Poyle the day that they signed Kevin Lankinen because all the stats that Adam Vingan and Robbie were telling me about were all bad. And it was like, why do that when you already have Connor Ingram? But I actually think Kevin Lankinen's been really good for the last 2 years as the backup goalie to the Predators. And to that point, when it comes to the trade deadline, I do wonder if there's a team like Los Angeles that says, Lankinen makes, I think, $2 million. So you can easily take on a contract that would probably net you a better draft pick to maybe give somebody else a little bit more cap space or something. But you could do that and give a team Kevin Lankinen, and they could say, okay, Kevin Lankinen is our insurance policy that we traded a third-round draft choice to get just because we think we need to make sure that we've got enough at goaltender. Not that you think he's Markstrom or Soros or one of these potential legitimate 1A starters. But if you've got a shaky goaltending situation, I think Kevin Lankinen has done enough to where I would want him on my team to where, hey, if we got to play him, we got to play him. And so I think Lankinen, I don't want to overreact to what Lankinen did last night and say that, oh, wow, he could be a starting goalie, because I've never thought that. But I do think that there's value for him. And when Barry Trotz is talking about wanting to get a Askarov up to the NHL level to play games with Soros in front of him, there is an odd man out in that situation, and it's probably Lankinen. One texter into the text line, and this is one of those, I don't know who this is, but I recognize their phone number and their area code. They're one of the 33 percenters, Ian, that hate the show and hate me. And text in, it says, huge overreaction as expected. It's hockey, Jared. You should watch other teams once a week. Vegas just had a bad night. It's as simple as that. Is it?
Vegas didn't look very good.
I'm sorry. But, I mean, I'm looking at the Predators. Did St. Louis have a bad night too?
Actually, St. Louis had been playing pretty well.
I'm sorry. Like, the Predators played the kind of hockey they're going to have to play in order to win, and I thought they executed very well both nights.
Yeah, I didn't think Vegas played very well. And then Stone got hurt. I actually didn't see the collision with Trennan. I must have missed the exact play. But I guess him and Trennan collided. I remember hearing Willie say that in the broadcast. And then Stone didn't come back, so they didn't have him in the third, so that was help. And then Eichel wasn't in the game either. And then for whatever reason, their goalie looked a little shaky. But
my God, that one that he went just went right through the 5-hole. I want to say it was Evangelistas, maybe. Maybe it was Smith. I can't remember. There was one that went right through the wickets, and I was like, I'd have gone nuts if one of the Predators goaltenders allowed.
So
that.
hey, give credit to the Preds, though. They showed up.
I mean, again, like, I'm not, it wasn't, and plus, this texture saying don't overreact to one game. I just told you that they have to sweep the road trip for them to be on a 92-point pace for the season. And 92 does not for sure get them in. So, as I've said, I thought they were going to win because, again, when the Predators start to zig, then they zag. When you think, oh, now they're really headed in the bad direction. Oh, nope, turned it around. Last year, they sold off half the team. And they were competing better for a playoff spot after that than they were before. One texter says, here's what we really need to see. The Predators on the road are a much better team and then are horrible at home. I want to see last night's effort at Bridgestone Arena on a consistent basis. Amen. Because here's what's going to happen is after this road trip, let's just say the Predators sweep the road trip, which is a lot to assume. But let's say that's the case. Ottawa at home on Tuesday night. You need it. Minnesota on Thursday. They are right on your heels in the standings. Colorado at home on Saturday. It does you no good to go on the road and win all these games and then come home and crap the bed and all of a sudden you didn't make up any ground. I mean, again, the last 2 games they've won just make up for the last 2 before it at home that they lost. So they've got to start playing better at Bridgestone Arena. And I will give you that. Texter says, Jared, I got to give you huge props. You called a win for the Preds on the road yesterday. I thought you were crazy and thought they had no chance. Nice call. Come on, Chase. Once you think they're going to zig, they zag. That's how they've always been. That's how they've always been. Joey from Bellevue says Sean Henry called in and gave Joe hell this morning for his Rex rant on Max. Ian, tell the fine folks out there that is, in fact, on the agenda today to discuss.
Yes, it is.
And it wouldn't surprise me if it comes up during Jared versus Joe today as well. But you'll just have to wait on that one.
Poor Max wakes up West Coast Pacific time, sees his phone, all these tweets and texts about.
Well,
hey,
you want to know what happened to Max? You want to know how Max found out about all this was going on and everything else?
Did you bother him?
I called him and woke him up.
So nice of you.
So I will tell you exactly. You're talking about, oh, poor Max is out there in Vegas and he wakes up in the morning and people are texting him because of what happened at 7:45, which would have been 5:45 Pacific time. And so Max called the game, probably got done. Max probably left the arena at what? 1 in the morning Central Time? 2 in the morning Central Time?
Central Time? Yeah, probably.
1.
Oh, it's hard to do the math. It's probably, 12:30, something like that.
Yeah. So Max is probably, plus they're out in Vegas, so who knows what Max did after the game. And then Max wakes up this morning and is like, oh, got a call from me. It's like, literally when I talked to Max this morning, he was like, oh, what's up? I'm like, all right, so you missed what happened at 7:45 this morning. And had a nice little chat with Max. Maybe I'm not the best person to talk to Max after the fact. Can we just, since maybe people don't have all the context of this, can we just go ahead and play that mashup clip, Ian? That'll be what we return on later when we do dive in deep to the drama that went down on the Rex rant this morning.
Trennan ties it up in the corner. Predators win. Predators 5, Golden Knights 3. And we're 2-0 to start the road trip with a big win in fabulous Las Vegas.
Max, in this long career in play-by-play, don't ever say we again. I beg of you, okay? I beg of you to not do this.
And why
you
is
did
that?
Not do. You did not do anything. You called the game, which is great. It's an important part of the process. You did nothing. You did not take a shift. You did not coach the team. You did not pick the players. You did not do the equipment. What else? Who else could say we? Who's allowed to say we?
You don't own the team?
Okay, there you go. You don't own the team.
Let's welcome in Sean Henry of the Nashville Predators.
Oh,
Sean Henry, your
I thought
thoughts
it was
on
gonna be
Rex
Max
Road?
Hers.
Blasting Max Hurst.
Hey, Joe, are you on your porch yelling at the grass and the clouds? You're a professional writer. You should know what a pronoun is. Max is we. Come on, man. The greatest announcers ever recognize when they're not calling national games, they work for the team. It is we.
Okay, so that is the drama that went down this morning. We will touch on it later. So I just wanted everybody to have that context. And yes, Max found out that all that went down this morning because I called him. Justin says, I was shocked at how well the Predators played last night. It is indicative of how this team has been for a while, though, and I know that they play up to the good teams and down to the bad teams. I need them to work on consistency next, bring the A game or the B game every night, and leave that bum D team on the bus. The Predators, he actually says we. Justin in Greenbrier says we. Joe, We need that team to go hide in a closet and think about what they did. Be your best team every time you skate out onto the ice, home or away. I agree, but it's a lot harder to actually do that than it is to, do that. Okay, Chris Sanders will join us next, former Titans receiver. Did you see this FanDuel list of starting quarterbacks in the NFL? Did you see where Will Levis ranks? We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in, that's 615-737-1025. And tune into 93.3 Classic Hits tonight as MTSU basketball takes on Jacksonville State on the road. Pregame 5:30, tip-off at 6. And coverage is also available on the 93.3 Classic Hits app and at 93.3classichits.com. And tonight, Vandy basketball takes on Georgia at home. Pregame at 7, tip-off 7:30. Coverage available on the 102.5 The Game app and at thegamenashville.com. Stillman and Company, 102.5-1063 The Game. Be sure to check out Nashville's best deal. Their best deal this week is Bavarian Beer House, conveniently located at Opry Mills Mall. Enjoy beer, food, music, and fun at Nashville's only authentic German beer hall, where it's Oktoberfest every day. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals now to get a $50 gift card for only $25 to Bavarian Beer House while supplies last. So FanDuel put out on social media their way too early 2024 quarterback rankings. Have you seen this, Ian?
A little.
So you know where Will Levis ranks?
I do, yeah.
So where would you, if you could put Will Levis, where would you put him? Just off the top of your head.
I don't know, somewhere in the 20s.
They have him at 32 of the 32 starters. Ahead of him, 31, J.J. McCarthy of the Falcons. Ahead of him, Russell Wilson of the Raiders. Michael Penix Jr. of the Broncos at 27. Daniel Jones at 26, Jaden Daniels to the Patriots at 23, Anthony Richardson, who played all of 6 snaps last year, at 22, Drake May at 21 to Washington, Justin Fields to the Steelers at 20, Caleb Williams at 12 as a Chicago Bear. By the way, I listened to our midday show today. They said some crazy stuff on that program today, by the way, which we will get into some of that too. But I listened to all 3 of them, Willie, Caroline, and Derek. I'll take Justin Fields over Will Levis. And I texted Porth, who's up in Chicago. I said, who would you take, Levis or Fields? And he said Levis. And I said, well, all 3 of them on the midday show picked Fields. I think they're crazy too. And Porth said, Fields can't read a defense. I was like, that's pretty important. Chris Sanders joins us now on the program. Chris, your quarterback ranks 32nd according to FanDuel Sports. What do you make of it?
Hey, it's not about me. I think that Will Levis is pissed. I bet you if he's looking at that, he's probably throwing the ball right now 7 times a day. But just looking at the whole lineup, I know they got him ranked 32 or dead last, but I think he's around the 20th. But at the end of the day, he's still unproven. So they're going to kind of put him in that situation, make him be last. But listen, if I'm Will Levis, I'm not going to look at it as getting mad at the situation. I'm going to use it as motivation. Say, you know what, you rank me the 32nd quarterback in the league, and then you rank some people in front of me that haven't even played yet. If I'm Will Levis, I'm working out now. I'm doing everything to get better because I'm going to prove to them that I'm one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Chris, how important is this offseason for Levis in terms of whether or not he's going to make it? Because I agree with you.
Yeah.
He's unproven, and so is he going to be a starter? I mean, he's your starter this year, but I don't know if he's going to be that or not. How important and critical is this offseason for him?
I mean, it's very important because you just said a key word, I don't know, or a key phrase. You said, I don't know, because when he played against I think it was the Atlanta Falcons this year, I mean, he looked fantastic. And then some games where he didn't look like he played football at all. So we just don't know. I think this is a big year for Will Levis because everybody's talking about that we're not sure if he's a franchise quarterback. But if he comes out and plays well and gain the trust of his teammates and, gain the trust of his coaches, I think that, he can be successful. But at the end of the day, we just said the key phrase or the key word that he's still unproven. So that's why I say that this offseason is huge for Will Levis.
Chris, if the Titans find themselves in the position that Joel Klatt had on his mock draft at Fox Sports, where they're on the board at 7, and both Malik Neighbors, the receiver at LSU, and Joe Alt, the tackle at Notre Dame, are available.
Oh, my gosh.
And you're sitting there, and you can pick, hey, we can try to build an average offensive line through free agency and maybe a second-round draft choice and go with Malik Neighbors as the outside weapon to Will Levis. Or we can get the left tackle, and between the left tackle, the 11th overall pick at left guard, and the guru offensive line coach, start to try to build out a great offensive line. Which one would you pick?
And I'm going to say this may sound really, really crazy. The reason why I would say I would go with Joe Alt for Notre Dame, I mean, he's 6'8", physical, and you have to have a left tackle to protect your quarterback. But the reason why I say that, Jared, is because it's so rich in the wide receiver position. Look at all the guys that's in the draft. You got Neighbors from LSU. You got Adunda from Washington. You got Thomas from LSU. You got you got Franklin from Oregon. You got McConkley from Georgia. So even though you may not get a Neighbors, it's still rich in guys that can come in and play. So, if I'm at the 7th pick and I'm the Tennessee Titans, you just can't pass up a left tackle because it's so important. And if you look at the left tackle, position, there's a couple of guys that I like. Just like I said, Joe Alt from Notre Dame. Then I also like Latham from Alabama, big physical bruiser.
Well, he's a right tackle.
But you can kind of maybe move over onto both sides. But it's just you just want to make sure that you just don't get a whole bunch of skilled guys, but also we're in the same predicament that we were in last year, and you go in free agency and get guys like Dillard and Brunskill and guys like that didn't really pan out.
So I'm going to pose it to you like this.
Sure.
Because, I did ask Brian Callahan about the decision the Bengals made between Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell, and he told me that they had them both rated as future 10-time Pro Bowlers, right?
Right.
And it looks like Chase is one of the best receivers and Sewell is one of the best tackles, and the Lions are winning because of Sewell and the Bengals are winning because of Chase.
Sure.
If this is the same thing, where both Neighbors and Alt are evaluated as both 10-time Pro Bowlers, you still would take the left tackle over the receiver.
I still would. And just to kind of talk about my late friend Floyd Reese, he said that when you pick at this position and you get an offensive line guy, you better make sure he's a doggone Hall of Fame. And I'm not saying Joe Alt is a Hall of Fame guy. I mean, there's still things he needs to improve on. But at the end of the day, you got to make sure that whoever you pick, wide receiver or offensive line, that he's an impact player. You just can't get a guy in here coming into the 7th pick and just hope he pans out. When you're picking an offensive lineman, he's got to play immediately. It ain't no, well, we got to have him develop and, he can play this position. No, he's got to play right away. And I think that if they pick Joe Alt or if they pick a wide receiver, they got to make sure that he comes and plays right away.
Chris, are you against the idea of overpaying free agents if it means that you get a guy who fits a need for the team in free agency?
Yeah, I mean, you want to pay. It's not that you overpay. You want to make sure he comes in here and perform. I mean, we didn't pay DeAndre Hopkins a lot to get him in, but he panned out to be special for this Tennessee Titans team. So you go out and get a guy and you pay him a whole bunch of money, you better make sure that he's a vital part of your offense or defense or whatever position that he plays. He's got to be a vital piece of what you're building. So, if you do overpay, if you do those things, you just got to make sure that he pans out as opposed to not having Julio Jones and it doesn't pan out.
Well, I say this because I was listening to the midday show today, and Derek and Willie were screaming about, oh, no, you can't overpay in free agency.
Right.
I'm not going to pay an $8 million center. I'm not going to pay him $13 million bucks. And I'm like, the way I look at it, though, Chris, is if you're a starting center, I'm going to have to pay more to get you on my team because how many teams or how many guys, if everything's even, if the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Titans are all offering the same amount of money, how many guys are like, go play with the 32nd best quarterback in a team that never gets on Sunday Night Football?
Yeah, you just want to be smart when you do it. I mean, I understand what they're saying, and they're correct in your way, and you're correct in your way also. But if you overpay, you just better make sure that he comes in and not that, okay, we got to develop him more, he'll be okay. He's got to come in here and play right away. He's got to impact the game. He's got to be a game changer because we talk about bringing free agents in. Okay, that's great. But if he comes in here and he's just a guy, you can do that. You can get just a guy. He's got to come in here, and he's got to impact the stinking game if you're going to overpay this guy. So I agree with Derek, and I actually agree with you also.
I have a prediction for the end of the week, Chris Sanders.
What?
Andre Dillard will be released as a Tennessee Titan.
Come on, man.
And will not be on the team next year. He is still technically under contract for next season. The Combine is next week. What they call cap casualties. Andre Dillard's actually not a cap casualty because it technically hurts the cap in order to release him. But I do believe that they will release Andre Dillard and that he will not be on this team. Will you miss him?
I think that he'll be gone, and I think the reason why is because they're going to find some other players that they might bring in that has depth. I mean, some guys like Michael Dunn, Nick Harrison, Jerron Christian, probably guys that you never even heard of, but it'll bring some depth to where, you can help the guys who ever put in that position. So I think
more Andre Dillards.
Was that?
More Andre Dillards.
No, man.
Just mention guys I've never heard of. Great. We're going to bring in this guy that we've never heard of. We're going to put him at left tackle. You guys just trust us. It'll work.
But guess But guess who worked with him? Bill Callahan. That's the reason why I say that. Bill Callahan worked with these guys, the guys that I just talked about. So he knows these guys inside and out to where, it'll bring in some depth. Now, you got Dylan and Brunskill and Chris Hubbard and all those guys, those were just guys. But this is the guy that Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach, he worked with these guys, bring them in and don't pay them much money, but also, create some depth.
Last one for you, Chris Sanders. There is one guy who I would love to have on the Titans. I don't think they're going to get him, but I would love, and I think he's going to be out, like he's actually going to be available, and he's actually going to change teams, and that is L'Jarius Sneed of the Chiefs.
Oh, I love him.
Is he, if the Titans sign him, is he for sure their number one corner, and you're good with him and McCreary, and you can add another guy, but he's like, a legitimate big-time piece?
Oh, love it. I mean, I love this guy. I watch what he does because I was just talking to TD, a little earlier today. We talked about some free agent guys that could probably come in and help the Tennessee Titans in the cornerback position, and he's one of the guys we brought up. I mean, he's nasty, he's physical, and TD said this. He said these are one of the guys that you want to fight in practice because if you look at the coaching staff, all these guys are fighters. And the defensive back coach that they brought in was Steve Jackson. I played with him, with the Houston Oilers/Titans. These guys understand how to compete. And then you have a guy that you bring in, Sneed, he understands how to compete. So, I would love that situation. There's another guy that I actually love how you pronounce his name?
Awuzie?
Yeah, no, Awuzie from the Bengals. You bring a guy like that in with him and Sneed, I mean, it can produce a secondary that was terrible last year to become one of the best secondaries in the league next year.
Chris Sanders, former Titans receiver, as always, joining us on a Wednesday. Chris, great stuff. Appreciate you.
Man, appreciate you, brother. Love you, man.
Yep, love you too. Chris Sanders joining us as he always does. So Chris says he would go with the tackle over the receiver. I'm a little surprised by that. Everybody and their grandma has told me the tackle over the receiver. Everybody, it feels like. Coming up next, Trevor Maddich said something on our program yesterday that really has stuck with me throughout yesterday, after he said it, been thinking about it all day today, and I put myself in the shoes of the general manager. If the general manager had Trevor Maddich working for them and valued Trevor's opinion as much as I do. And we'll get to that next. Stillman and Company right here, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live in the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. So Trevor Maddich came on our show yesterday, as he always does, and I value Trevor's opinion maybe as much as anybody else that we talk to or hear from or anything. That's how much I value Trevor's opinion through and through. A buddy of mine texted in after Trevor was on the show yesterday when I kept asking him about, okay, can I move Skoronski to left tackle and then draft the receiver and then sign the guard in free agency? What do you think of that? And it felt like the more we talked to Trevor about the potential for the Titans to do anything but draft a starting left tackle with the 7th overall pick, the more I started to feel like Trevor was beginning to stand on the table. Now, you know what that means. Somebody stands on the table for you. Somebody goes to the mattress for you. Somebody goes all in for you. You know what that means. And it felt to me yesterday that when it came to drafting with the 7th overall pick of left tackle, it felt to me like Trevor started to stand on the table. Now, I talked to Trevor about what if Malik Neighbors is there, what if Roma Dunze is there, what if there's a big trade offer and they can pick up more draft picks and there are other tackles that'll be available in the first round. And Trevor, I felt like, kind of put his foot down. Is the drop-off between Alt and Fashanu worth the extra third-round pick that the Titans theoretically could receive?
Not at left tackle. No way. Not at left tackle. I look at the 49ers, for example. I don't think Brock Purdy, their quarterback, would have had the start to his career that he did. And I don't think the 49ers would be in the Super Bowl if they didn't have Trent Williams at left tackle, a slam dunk, first ballot Hall of Famer who's still playing at a Pro Bowl level. And that position is just that important. Now, but the other positions are important too. And if they decided to do that, there's going to be guys that should be able to be strong contributors that they could pick up in the third round. Olu Fashanu and Joe Alt, those two guys, either one of those, I am super happy with. Okay. I think both of those guys will be 10, 12-year, all-pro level left tackles in the NFL. Everybody else, there's a compromise if you're going to play them at left tackle instead of at right tackle. That's the point that I'm making.
Okay. He's saying, hey, if you trade out of that spot, you pick up an extra third-round pick, and you don't get one of those two left tackles, nobody else in this draft is like those two left tackles. And then I think about, okay, well, is it that important? Like, is it that big of a deal to get one of those two left tackles? And Trevor brought up a great point about, hey, there are dudes and then there are dudes.
Here's one thing you've got to really think about if you're the Titans, if you're anybody. What is your goal here? If your goal is to build a championship level team, then when you draft in the top 10, you've got to get somebody that is clearly better than the guy on the other side of the line of scrimmage, no matter who you're playing. And if you don't, if you just trade down and start to take picks in the average area of the first round, in other words, in the middle picks, the average areas of the second round, et cetera, then what you might actually be doing is accelerating the process of building a nice average team. You have a chance to get difference makers. You need to get those difference makers. And so at left tackle, there are not difference makers, in my opinion, outside of those two guys. Although there are some guys that could be difference makers at right tackle if you're willing to forego the left side.
Okay, well, I value left tackle more than right tackle, even though right tackle is important too. But I value left tackle. And so I'm sitting here thinking to myself, again, my friend texted me and said, you must have hated that answer. And I said, I didn't. Because I'm thinking about myself and I'm putting myself in the shoes of the general manager. And if Trevor Maddich is a scout or is a director of player personnel or a director of college scouting or assistant general manager or something like that, offensive line coach, if that's what Trevor Maddich is to me, then I really am taking stock of what he's saying. Right? That's, you guys talk about what you don't like about John Robinson, And one of the things that the Titans have made clear to everybody is that John Robinson kind of locked himself in his office. And I have no idea if this is true, by the way. This is just what the Titans are telling everybody. That, John Robinson locked himself in his office, and he just decided, I'm picking Jimmy. And, that was it. And that the scouts didn't feel empowered, which is why everybody's supposed to trust that the John Robinson scouts will be able to find Rand Carthon good players. But I do think it is important to listen to and empower the people who you at least trust enough to hire to bring into your circle. And I would say that we trust Trevor enough, he's inside our circle, that when he is telling me straight up, hey, man, you can trade. And if you trade, you can go sign Jonah Williams to play left tackle. You could move Skoronski out there to left tackle. You could pick one of these guys that might be able to convert over to left tackle that's a right tackle. You might be able to get a good right tackle this year and then try to figure out, and you may get more, but if you do that, you're not getting a difference maker at left tackle. If you draft Malik Neighbors, you're not getting a difference maker at left tackle. If you draft Roma Dunze or Brock Bowers, you're not getting an elite difference maker at tackle. And it's pretty important to him. And so I have kind of pushed back on the idea that the Titans just have to stick at 7 and the Titans just have to take the tackle. If it's Alt, it's Alt. If it's Fashanu, it's Fashanu. The more I'm starting to get talked into it. And I actually think that's a good thing, right? That I'm not just crossing my arms for the sake of disagreeing and saying, I disagree. I think that Malik Neighbors is the next Jamar Chase, and you've got to take the next Jamar Chase. Because, again, protection's always been an issue for this team. It's been an issue since Ryan Tannehill became the quarterback. I mean, they had a nice little year-long run where they had a solid offensive line, and then it just became a problem. And, again, left tackle is not a let's joke about this position. The Titans joked about it last year, and everybody involved with that decision for the most part outside of Rand Carthon's been fired. Vrabel's been fired. The offensive line coach has been fired. Andre Dillard's going to be fired. Tannehill's been fired. Everybody who's surrounding that Dillard thing, except for Rand Carthon, everybody else has been fired. So, again, there is, hey, I like this guy, or I like that guy, or hey, you could do this, or you should do this. And then there is standing on the table saying, look, if you've got the 7th pick, and you're on the clock, and Joe Alt's there, you take him. Well, if I can trade down to 13, I can pick up a 2nd-round pick, and while that tackle may be gone, there's a chance that Fashanu's available. And if Fashanu's not there, then I can go with the tackle out of Oklahoma, but he's a right tackle. The tackle out of Alabama, but he's a right tackle. The tackle out of Oregon State, but he's a right tackle. And maybe those guys can play left tackle. And Trevor's just saying, no, we're not doing that. And so, again, while I sit here and I'm like, man, the Titans have 16 holes they've got to fill. And the Titans have 4 young, buildable pieces on their football team. Levis, Skoronski, Spears, and McCreary. They need more young players. And there's really only one way to get more young players. It's to trade in the draft. I am starting to seriously consider what Trevor said, which is, I don't care if Marvin Harrison is there, you take the tackle. I'm starting to trend in that direction. I'm not saying I'm all the way there, but he's standing on the table for it, and that means something to me. Because if I was GM and I empowered Trevor to be a part of our think tank, that would matter to me. Again, I'm the one who makes the decision. I'm GM, but it's weighing on me. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So I keep badgering Trev about playing Skoronski at left tackle because, my God, would that make everybody's life easier. Let's just say Peter Skoronski, All-American left tackle at Northwestern, moves over to left tackle in the NFL, and like Rashawn Slater, who had the same measurables and played at the same school, let's say that he's a Pro Bowl left tackle. That solves so many problems for the Titans. And so I've been badgering Trevor about it. And Trevor made a point yesterday about the upside of the line if you do that. And I think there are two people whose opinions matter on this, and we don't know exactly what they think. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan today at, let me make this screen bigger here. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan today as Vandy Baseball takes on Eastern Kentucky at Hawkins Field. Pregame at 4:15. First pitch is at 4:30, and coverage is also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com.
If you want to build an average to above average offensive line, then sure. Go ahead and take Skoronski, who probably is going to play his best football at left guard, and move him out to left tackle, a position where he'll probably be fine, but not as dominant as it seems to be he will become at left guard, right? I think they're much better off keeping Skoronski at left guard, letting him develop. If they move him out to left tackle for a year or two while they solidify everything else, what they're doing is delaying his development as a left guard. And so I think they're better off just saying, look, we got a position here that we like. We have a position that we think will develop into that dominant spot. Now, if you take a Joe Alter or an Olu Fashanu and put him at left tackle, you can count on, if things work out the way that we expect, the left side of the line being one of the best in the NFL. Now you get, good, at least average players in the other three positions, and you've got an offensive line that overall is above average and certainly has a chance to be even better depending on what free agents or draft choices you can plug in to some of those other three positions.
That was Trevor. And I've been badgering Trevor about, hey, can I play Skoronski at left tackle? Because if I play Skoronski at left tackle, I can go get a guard in free agency. There will be guards to be had. Whether it's Robert Hunt in Miami, whether it's Kevin Dotson of the Rams, whether it's Damian Williams, who was a starter for Seattle, who's played both spots. I mean, I can go right in to free agency and get a guard. And then I can go best player available at 7, or I can trade down and get more picks, or I can all those things. And Trevor says, if you want an average offensive line, you can do that. If you want a great offensive line, you have to keep Skoronski at left guard. So on the surface, it'd be very easy to say, all right, do I want the average offensive line or do I want the great offensive line? Well, no crap. You want the great offensive line. But it is, do I want the average offensive line with a great young, fast receiver complementing DeAndre Hopkins? Or do I want Hollywood Brown or Gabe Davis with DeAndre Hopkins and a great offensive line? And if I were GM, again, going back to Trevor and saying, hey, I value Trevor's opinion, like he would be part of the staff here. But if I was GM, there'd be two people whose opinions would really matter to me on this. The first is Brian Callahan, and the second is Amy Adams Strunk. Because I think when it comes to big philosophical decisions, the owner absolutely has to be involved. That's why when it comes to every quarterback decision, the owner's always involved. Robert Kraft will be involved with what New England does with the third pick. If the scouts and the coach and everybody else, they think Jaden Daniels isn't very good, and they say, look, we can draft him third overall, but we actually think that the receiver out of LSU would be better for us, and we can go sign Sam Darnold to play quarterback, or we can go get somebody else to play quarterback. And if you convince Robert Kraft and Kraft says do it, that's one thing. You don't make that pick, though, without Robert Kraft's blessing. And that's everywhere. So when it comes to, do I want the average line and trying to build premium weapons around the quarterback, or do I go without the superstar premium potential weapons to go with a great offensive line? I do care what the owner says. Because if the owner says, Jared, I want to build that line, all right. Now, it might cost us a lot of money, and it might cost us a high-end receiver, but we'll do it. The other is the coach. What does he want? Especially on that side of the ball. Because on that side of the ball, there are two things. Number one is Dad's the offensive line coach. And so I figure that he'll have a pretty candid idea of what the Titans need to do or what they should do. And the second thing is he's the one who has to coach it. What would you rather have? The average offensive line Trevor's talking about and the elite weapon, or Gabe Davis, Hollywood Brown, Calvin Ridley, a second-round receiver, and DeAndre, and the line with Alt at left tackle and Skoronski at left guard? And this was a podcast that Brian Callahan did before the 2022 draft. So the Bengals have made the Super Bowl at this point, but they got Joe Burrow sacked 9 times by the Titans and 7 times by the Rams. And they went into free agency, and they bought Ted Karras, the center, and Alex Kappa, the guard, and Lyle Collins, the tackle, and they already had Jonah Williams there, and so they spent big in free agency prior to the 2022 draft, and this is what Brian Callahan said at that time about the Bengals.
I think over the last, really our tenure here in the last, couple off seasons is we've done a really nice job in being selected in free agency. We've added, players that we think can make an impact, players that can help, players that have filled holes that we felt like we've had. And I think this year is even more so because we don't pick high. We're picking late in the round, which is where you want to pick. That's ideally that's where you're picking every year. But it does change the dynamics of what the draft looks like, because now there's a whole slew of picks in front of you. And you're not taking, the Jamar Chases and Joe Burrows don't exist at the back of the round. That's by design. That's why the NFL is the way it is. But it does change what's available to you, and you're not sure. When you pick higher, you can have a pretty good idea of between players on who might be there. When you pick later in the round and later in all the rounds, there's a lot of picks that come off the board. So there's a little more uncertainty about what it's going to look like at that pick.
I think the message there was, you don't get Jamar Chase unless you're picking at the top of the first round. Well, you're picking at the top of the first round. You don't get Malik Neighbors if you're not picking at the top of the first round. That's the point here. And so my gut tells me that the coach would prefer the average offensive line with the premium weapons, but I don't know. But at the end of the day, this really does come down to what that kind of decision, do I take the tackle and try to build a premium offensive line with two real linchpins on the left side with a great O-line coach, or do I try to give Levis the star receiver to go with the consistent good veteran? That's why these GMs get paid all that money. That's the whole point of this. Because if you're wrong, you lose. You get fired. If you're right, you're in the Super Bowl like Cincinnati was with Jamar Chase. And everybody gets a raise, and everybody gets promoted, even at cheap old Cincinnati. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. One texter says, Houston has a pretty good left tackle and a left guard to protect their young quarterback, and I'm afraid neither of the two left tackles will be available at 7. I'd be shocked if one of the two left tackles was not available at 7. If one of the two left tackles is not available at 7, there's a couple of things at play here. Number one, if one of the left tackles isn't available, that means the quarterbacks are flying down the board to you. And Atlanta is picking behind you, which means you are in premium position. If you can't get one of those left tackles and you've got the 7th overall pick, and Atlanta is picking at 8, and everybody and their grandma knows they need a quarterback. Now, Atlanta may try to get in front of you to 6 with the Giants, but if that's what's going to happen, and those left tackles are off the board, and Atlanta's behind you, there may be somebody who will give you the world to move up and take one of those quarterbacks if Daniels or May are there. My guess is quarterback 1, 2, I think that's done. I think Caleb Williams is the Bears quarterback. I think Drake May is the Commanders quarterback. 3, I'd say I'm 85% sure Jaden Daniels is going to be the Patriots quarterback. But I could see them talking themselves out of it. I could see it. And they could go tackle. That's the team that could take the tackle 3rd overall.